there, my name is Brooke Miller and I'm the president of a company called Fish Baby here in South Florida. And I know you came to see this video so that you can see some of the free cichlids that we can catch. We have tons of canals running behind our house, and that's the dirty one you see right there in the screenshot. But nonetheless, I thought I'd show you some cool video on how we can catch these free cichlids. We're going to science this a little bit and tell you a little bit about what cichlids we can find in those canals and what cichlids we can't find in those canals. And more so, just to throw out a video on here on Veterans Day, because one of the areas of focus for my company is actually looking at aquarium therapy as it relates to veterans that are suffering from PTSD. So the more we get subscribers and the more we're successful with getting people to come to our company, the better off we can do with giving back towards our veterans. So this is the cool little fish that we're going to catch today. This is the jewel cichlid. Its scientific name is Hemichromis bimaculatus. It has other species scientific names to it, but for the most part, this is what we see here in Florida canals. It's a great fish that came into the aquarium hobby about 40 years ago, and you can see by its bright coloration and because it's easy to keep and easy to breed, it was a no-brainer that aquarists picked it up and loved it. When we catch these guys, we use one of these minnow traps that you can get online for like $12 to $13. Fill it in with whatever is left over in the fridge for meat and give it a toss into the canal and let it sit there for like 30 minutes. So while we're waiting for our minnow trap to fill with jewel cichlids, let's take a look at this website. This is the Florida Fish and Wildlife non-native species. Here's a look at the Midas cichlid. And these are the species that we can find in our canals behind our house. Here's the Oscar and the knifefish. And the reason all of these fish are actually in our canals is because people release them from their aquariums. If you look on the Florida Fish and Wildlife non-native species and we scroll down here, you can see pretty much 90% of the fish that are a part of our canals in the South Florida waterways are because of being released by folks that just didn't want them anymore. Here's another non-native species, the Mayan cichlid. Look at the marks on his body. They are vertical stripes that go up and down, and there's a reason for this. The natural habitat of the Mayan cichlid includes dense forest, plants, and anything underwater that has a lot of vegetation and any types of nooks and crannies that an animal like this can hide in. And so that's why the bars on his body are vertical. It will help camouflage him so that he doesn't get eaten. Now let's take a look at our beautiful Mbuna cichlids. Notice how the bars on this particular cichlid are horizontal? Well, there's a reason for that too. So I absolutely love this picture of Lake Moali in Africa. It like makes you want to dive right in and snorkel and enjoy the beauty of how absolutely pristine that water is. But the reason I showed you this is you notice that Lake Moali, where the natural habitat of the Mbuna cichlid is, and the little guy that I showed you earlier with his horizontal stripes, it would make sense if you're following the philosophy of natural selection and the science behind it that says fish are going to adapt to the environment that will suit them best. And so those horizontal stripes will actually mirror the horizontal nature of the rocky outcrops in Lake Moali. Having said that, it came to my attention that there were some videos out there that said we had Mbuna cichlids in South Florida. Well, that's not so true. Unfortunately, fish do get released in our waterways, and it's an occasional few that try to, take a stronghold and start to reproduce and do a much better job than the native species that we have and kind of take over. But due to the nature of the Mbuna cichlid and those horizontal stripes, the fact of the matter is that's like wearing a sign to the large predator fish that are in our canals saying, come eat me, I'm bright, I'm yellow, or even if I'm another color, but those stripes are not going to do that fish justice in an area that's a densely vegetated canal. So I hope that makes sense and clears up any misinformation that might be out there. So yes, we do have a lot of non-native species here in South Florida. Some are able to take a stronghold and unfortunately have kind of set up shop, and all of us do our best to try and eradicate those non-native species. But at the end of the day, only the species that are designed to fit in this type of heavy, dense vegetation, murky water, those are the fish that are actually going to be able to thrive and survive. So let's go get our loot. I could probably do this 5 times a day and easily have the trap full of 20 plus fish each time. Like I mentioned, we have tons of vegetation, and the canals here are kind of gross at times. You can see the algae, and it has a good heavy layer of protein and detritus on top of that algae. And I do have to be careful when I pull the trap in at times, because Florida Fish and Wildlife will go through, and the agricultural division will go through and spray herbicides and pesticides. And so I need to be really conscientious when they do spray, because there is definitely a film on the water. So let's take a look at these little beauties. There are plenty of jewel cichlids in there. There's also a couple mosquito fish, otherwise known as gambusia. So we pretty much can catch about 20 of these, like I mentioned earlier, each day. I can do that 5 times a day. That's how many fish there are. Depending on what time of year it is, it has been unseasonably warm this year. I seem to get more. Probably because resources are down and the fish aren't able to get as much food this late in the season, because we haven't had the changes that we need. But since the little fish aren't doing as great as they have in the past, the big fish are doing fantastic. And when I was pulling up this particular loot, a 2.5 foot Florida gar swam by, and it couldn't have been fatter and rounder. So thanks for coming with us to catch some free cichlids here in South Florida. If there's something that you do want to see, drop us a note below and let us know what you'd like to see. Here in South Florida, we have tons of stuff available to us, and if there's something of interest, just let us know. Don't forget to check out both of our websites, fishbaby.com and ecopetglobal.com is the company that oversees the aquarium therapy with veterans and PTSD. So both of those websites should have some information for you if you're interested in finding out more. But thanks for coming with us, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Take care.